So I'm Sheila Grant, I'm Head of Inspection for Adult Social Care in North Central, which is an area that covers South and West Yorkshire, Greater Manchester, Blackburn with Darwin. Approximately 2,500 adult social care services within that. I hope people know what our purpose is as a commission. So it's to make sure that health and social care services provide people with safe, effective, compassionate, high quality care, and we encourage services to improve. And we do that by monitoring, inspecting and regulating services to make sure they meet basic fundamental standards of quality and safety, and we publish what we find. So we rate services. So every adult social care location in the country that's been inspected will now have a rating. What's absolutely essential to that is our focus on people who use services. Absolutely central to everything we do and every inspection we undertake. So people who use services are our key focus. So what do we do in terms of regulation to inspire improvement? We set clear expectations, we monitor and inspect, and we publish and rate. We celebrate success. And I think that's often missed, the celebration of that success. There are some outstanding services for people who are living with dementia, and it's so very rarely heard of. It's always about the poor and inadequate services, and we really need to get better at celebrating the good practice that's out there. We do tackle failure, so if services are not good enough, we will deal with that and take action. We'll try and signpost people to things of good practice, refer them to things that Alzheimer's Society have done, that other service providers are doing, that actually demonstrate that good practice that's out there. We influence debate. In terms of the Commission, we're one of the few people, I think we're the only people, who actually have a voice right across health and social care, so from a domiciliary care service to the biggest teaching hospitals in the country. So we influence that debate in a lot of ways. We work in partnership with anybody who wants to work with us. So Baroness spoke about Rachel working with her, and that's certainly something we do. We try and work right across, that we try and pick up good practice from anybody and everybody. We do a lot of co-production in everything that we do. When we inspect, we use key lines of enquiry. And those key lines of inquiry are around safe, effective, caring, responsive and well-led. And each key line of inquiry has particular prompts underneath it that highlight what those key lines of inquiry are about. I thought it was just worth sharing the ratings we've done so far. This was the end of May. Just over 14,500 about inspections completed. And it's interesting, if I'd have shown this slide January this year, the percentage of outstanding would have been lower, and the percentage of inadequate would have been higher. So there's starting to be a real shift to more outstanding and good. And certainly for us, what is good to see is the percentage of good that is continuing to improve. So how does dementia fit with what we do? We did a piece of work, we did a report on called Cracks in the Pathway, which was a piece of work looking at services right across health and social care and the cracks that appear if you have dementia. So, why did we do it? We did it because the number of people living with dementia is growing. People have talked about that very morning. Most of the 400,000 people, older people living in care homes, are living with dementia, and around 40% of those people are over 65 in hospital beds, live with dementia. I think what we haven't scoped properly yet is younger adults, that actually there is a growing community of younger adults with dementia, and actually what is that service provision for those young people, and actually it's not usually good. My experience of it has been that people end up in an older person's care home that doesn't meet their needs, and it's something that as care providers people should be looking at and thinking about for the future. What's really important, we can't ignore this group of people. 10 years' time, this could be me. I could be living with dementia, and I want to know that those services out there are good and excellent and are going to provide me with the care that I need. I wanted also to do it for my mum, who's slightly older than me. So I think what we found when we looked at cracks in the pavement, there were variations. We found more good practice and more good care than poor. But we did find that the quality of dementia care is variable. Not everybody is meeting the standards that we expect, and people need to do something about that. Across more than 40% of care homes and hospitals visited, we found some variable or poor care. Unacceptable. It has to change. What was particularly a concern is transition between services, and that needs to improve. So if somebody moves from a care home into hospital, how's that transition handled? How are people supported in that move? And people who were, we clearly saw that people who were living with dementia experienced poor care at some point in those transitions. So just some stats really. In terms of assessment and care needs, 29% of care homes and 50% of hospitals were found aspects of variable or poor care regarding how a person's needs were assessed and how people were helped to be part of that decision making and those assessments. Planning and delivery of care, again, there was 34% of care homes, 42% of hospitals, there was variable or poor care. And I think in terms of that delivery and planning, what's really important are issues around mental capacity. It's a really key issue for us in the Commission, and I intend to go back and make sure inspectors are asking questions about Mental Capacity Act in probably a slightly different way as a result of today. But it's a really key issue about how do we involve people in making decisions. Just because somebody is living with dementia doesn't mean they can't make a decision. Sometimes you might have to do that in a different way, you might just not have to ask questions, you might have to use other ways of working with people, but there are ways of getting people to make decisions. What is not really reflected in here is growing minority communities and how we're meeting their needs as well. And actually, if we're looking about assessment and care needs, who do we need to involve to be able to do that properly? If people can't tell us what they need, we really need to engage with local communities and families to understand what those needs are. Providers working together, 27% of care homes and 22% of hospitals have variable or poor care regarding the arrangements they have and how they shared information. So we've seen some really good practice. Some services that just have a laminated card that gives some really basic information that says, this is who I am, this is what you need to do to keep me well, this is what I like, this is what I really do not like. So actually, if you're moving me from here to here, understand what I don't like, because that might demonstrate itself in a behaviour that you think is inappropriate. And actually, that's the only way I can tell you you're doing it wrong for me. Involvement's really important. 32%, 33% and 61% of hospitals found variable or poor regarding people and their families and carers. Where we see outstanding services, it's usually where there's really positive engagement with families, local communities, neighbours, anybody who comes into contact with people who are living with dementia. Recently, on an inspection, somebody said they'd, at a care home, they'd really got the next door neighbours engaged, and they'd taken some risks in terms of a couple of people who they didn't worry if they left the home because they had a system in place that every neighbour down the road knew that Fred, Jack, George, whoever, often did that. And actually, if somebody was in the garden, they'd offer him a cup of tea and he'd go and have a wander around the garden and then they'd walk him back to the care home. They didn't ring the police saying he's gone AWOL, he's missing. They'd actually got community support around people to enable them to live fulfilling lives. So some really basic things about what people have talked about already this morning really demonstrate just because you're in a care home doesn't mean you can't still do those sort of things. And involvement's absolutely central to people's lives. Staffing, I don't even, if you're a care provider, I'll apologise, I know what staffing's like. It's a nightmare to recruit good quality nurses and good quality staff who understand how to work with people who live with dementia. But it's a key issue. It's a key issue to delivering good, high-quality care. And what's absolutely essential in that is monitoring that care and making sure that the care that's provided is of a good quality. So really key. So in terms of our expectations around care for people living with dementia, it should absolutely be person-centred. Just because somebody's living with dementia doesn't change that person. It should clearly be about their needs. My husband always gives a really good example about mad football fan. If you took him to a certain football ground in this city, he would demonstrate behaviour that would not be seen as very positive. If you took him to a football ground at the other side of the Pennines that is not doing quite as well at the moment, he would be delighted and his behaviour would be completely different. So it's not just about the care needs and being person-centred, it's really focusing on not somebody who just likes football, but actually what football team, what rugby team, what tennis club do they want to go to, but actually really focusing on that person and putting them at the centre of what we do. Must take into account the physical and mental well-being and understanding that people can still make decisions and using the mental capacity out, using best interest where that's appropriate, but always remembering you start from that premise that people do have the capacity. Might take you some time to work through that, but you need to understand that. You need to improve the experience of people moving between services. Absolutely critical. Absolutely critical. I can't imagine if you are if you're living with dementia and you're moving between a care home, a hospital, and you might then move forwards in a very short period of time. Just not good, and we've got to get better at that. What's absolutely essential for any good care provision, whether that be a GP, whether that be a domiciliary care, whether it be a care home, is about ensuring that you're keeping up to date with good practice and putting that into practice. Sometimes you look at things and think, that's not going to work for us, but actually is there some little element of that that we can tweak that will make it work? But just being aware of those good practice issues. So what's our ambition? Care providers help people living with dementia maintain independence for as long as possible. Absolutely key. People live the lives that they want to lead. And that we enable people living with dementia to live life to the full. Just because you've got dementia doesn't mean you shouldn't enjoy life still. I certainly want to be able to do that when that happens. I've already talked about families and carers, but also making sure that they feel supported and that they feel part of that care. We've got to ensure that end-of-life care is the best it can be for people and that that's done with care and consideration for that individual. And we've got to remember to see the person, not the diagnosis. You might be living with dementia, but actually underneath that, there's still that person who had a job, who's raised a family, who's got grandchildren. They're still that person, and you mustn't lose sight of that. As I said, some just bits of things we found in terms of good care. These are just some examples we pulled from reports that were done as part of the pathway. But what was absolutely not good was integrated care. So actually, how do we ensure that people get really good integrated care? And these are just some of the experiences people had and told us about. People being moved from one ward to another, documents getting lost about this is me. Just some very basic things that actually have a massive impact on people's care. I think this could be from any serious case review. Problems with integration, information isn't shared, poor communication, lack of support, people believing that there are boundaries there that don't actually exist, and mutual antipathy. So actually, if we keep those in mind and try and not do that, forget about the boundaries, then we start to break that down, and we have a real responsibility to do that. So I've talked a little bit about this already, how regulation can help. It's person-centred coordinated care that's not organisation focused. So we will often talk about staffing being task focused, and it really needs to be turned on its head and person-centred focused. We'll continue to provide information about individual services and give the ratings on those. We'll set expectations for services to work with others. We'll be continuing to undertake thematic reviews. And we'll look at experience of people in localities. That's something we're starting to do, and looking more across the whole health and social care economy. We're also working with the vanguard sites, particularly in terms of the care homes, to enhance health in care homes. And there's some really innovative pieces of work being done on that. And we'll walk the talk, so we'll work in partnership with others through co-production and trying not to duplicate things. So, lots of outstanding reports, more than there were between December and February. We're now on 111. Not all of those will be for people living with dementia. But actually, there's a real part for me around services for people who have a learning disability. I worked with a young, 56-year-old man about 20 years ago who had dementia. There was no service provision, no specialist provision at all for them. So actually, even though we might be talking about some of those outstanding services being for people with a learning disability, it's about how they are also planning for the future. Just some little bits about what outstanding features were. I've talked about the bank of outstanding work is building as we move forward. We've seen it in both domiciliary care services and care homes. Seen some really good work with one domiciliary care service who totally engaged with the community. They've done some training in their local community, but actually that's really engaged their local community for people that they support in their own homes. As I've said, some really good care homes who are doing some really good innovative work with people. And another care home. Just to finish off, there's lots for us to do. There's some excellent care services out there, and I don't want to lose that. It's a real message that actually we see all the bad press, you never see the good. We did a piece last week on good news stories around care provision, and that really demonstrated that there are some really excellent care services out there doing some really good work with people, and we've got to celebrate that. But just some other documents that are out there at the moment. So, Cracks in the Pathway, right here, right now, which was around mental health, better care in our hands, and a different ending. We've got a couple of other thematic pieces of work that are either concluded in terms of we've done the work, we need to do the report, around integrated care for older people, and diabetes care in the community. So what's happening? And just if people want to ask questions, there's some enquiries, emails there that you can come through to us and share your experience. If you receive care, there's a form that you can complete that tells us about the care that you receive. So please take an opportunity to use that. Thank you.